Yo, what is up, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video, and today I'm going to be making 10 bold predictions for the upcoming NBA season. These range from where teams are finishing in the standings, to award predictions, to playoff predictions, to just kind of a lot of narratives in general. There's a lot to predict when it comes to the NBA season, and I always love making these bold predictions because they're bold. These don't have to be right. Most of the time, they're not going to be right, but it's fun to talk about all the possibilities in the NBA season. So I drew up 10 here today. If you want to see me make more bold predictions or things like that, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below, as well as leave a like and subscribe on the video. It's the best way to let me know that you enjoyed this type of video, and it helps me out way more than you can imagine. Let's go ahead and get into bold prediction number 1. The first bold prediction that I have for you today is that the Memphis Grizzlies, who shocked the world last season and got the 2 seed in the Western Conference, are going to be a borderline play-in team this season. It sounds kind of crazy to say, but you have to take a couple factors into account. Mainly the fact that the Western Conference is really good, and being a borderline play-in team is not bad in a conference like that. You of course have the Golden State Warriors, you've got the Phoenix Suns, you've got the Dallas Mavericks, the Los Angeles Clippers and Denver Nuggets getting important pieces back from injury, the New Orleans Pelicans and the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to be much better too. It is a ridiculously stacked conference, and the Grizzlies are going to be dealing with a major injury to start the season in Triple J. Who knows how long he's going to miss at the beginning of the year, and him being a defensive presence for them is huge. Also, his ability to space the floor at the 4 spot, it is really imperative to what the Grizzlies do that he is on the court. And in the Western Conference, you can't afford to lose many games before you start to fall really far behind. So I think that his absence at the beginning of the year, matched with a little bit of regression from a team that had some incredible wins without Ja Morant last season, leads to them being like a 6 or 7 seed in the West. When healthy, they still can compete with anybody, but I think that those factors will cause them to slip a bit in the standings. The second bold prediction is talking about the Grizzlies' playoff opponent, the Minnesota Timberwolves. I believe that they're going to fight for the first seed in the Western Conference. Rudy Gobert, I think, was an incredible addition to this Minnesota Timberwolves team. I've talked about on this channel a lot how I really believe in that pairing with him and Cat. I think they're going to do really good things down low together. You've also got Anthony Edwards, who I think is poised to make a jump to an all-star and is going to be a superstar within the next few seasons. D'Angelo Russell is a guy that was a lot better than most people give him credit for this past season. You add in role players like Taurean Prince, Naz Reid, Jaden McDaniels, who I think could take a leap as well. Jalen Noel I like a lot as a bucket getter off the bench. It's a really solid team. It's a team that I think is also well coached with Chris Finch. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people this upcoming season and make some noise. Maybe they don't end up as the first seed, but for a lot of the season at least, they're going to be up there competing for it. My third bold prediction is that Evan Mobley makes a lot of noise for Defensive Player of the Year this upcoming season. I'm not saying he's going to win the award because I think that's a little far-fetched, but I think that he is going to be in some of those conversations. The Cavaliers, I think, are a team that could be really solid defensively, which is imperative to winning the Defensive Player of the Year award, and Mobley is a guy that I am super high on. If you've been on this channel for the last year or so, back to last year's draft, Mobley was my top guy in the draft. To me, he's a guy that could project to be like an Anthony Davis type player, someone that's dominant both offensively and defensively, and I think the defense is clearly the thing that shines at the moment. He already got some noise for all defense last season. If the Cavs make some noise and jump a little bit in the standings and they're one of the top defenses, Evan Mobley's going to get talked about in those conversations. My fourth bold prediction is that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving enter the season on the Brooklyn Nets, and that doesn't even feel that far-fetched at this point. Kyrie Irving especially seems like he's okay with entering the season with the Brooklyn Nets, with the Nets reportedly not being super interested in what the Lakers have to offer for him in a trade. Kevin Durant is a little more of the bold one. There are reports that he'd be willing to sit out, but I think ultimately Kevin Durant is a guy that has talked at length about how much he just likes to hoop. I don't think I see any team matching what the Nets are looking for in a Kevin Durant trade package, at least not this offseason. Maybe by the time the trade deadline rolls around, there's some team that's like, we should go ahead and make this move. Maybe we're underperforming or overperforming and we feel like we need to make that last addition in Kevin Durant. Then maybe we see a move get made. But right now, I think that the asking price is just way too steep. The market is all thrown out of whack because of the Rudy Gobert trade. I think they both enter the season with the Brooklyn Nets. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they play the full year there and we revisit this whole situation next offseason. My fifth bold prediction for you today is that the Atlanta Hawks will add another all-star caliber player at the trade deadline. They already did that this offseason by bringing in DeJounte Murray to the fold next to Trae Young in the backcourt. And while I think that the Hawks are going to be better this upcoming season, I'm not a huge fan of that backcourt pairing. I think it makes sense in theory. You've got DeJounte who brings the defense, Trae's got the offense, and maybe it works out there. But I worry a little bit about how each of them is going to play off ball with each other. And so I think the Hawks could underperform a bit to start the season. I'm not saying they're going to be bad, but relative to maybe what the organization expects, I wouldn't be surprised if they're doing a bit worse, which I think could lead them to trading for another all-star caliber player. And they've got a pretty solid package on the roster, including John Collins, who has been rumored to be traded for like 2 years at this point. It feels like every time an offseason or a trade deadline comes around, John Collins' name is in rumors. Eventually, that is going to come to fruition, and so I think a package of him and a young player like a DeAndre Hunter or Bogdan Bogdanovic could entice a team with an all-star caliber player that maybe wants out, or the team's just looking to blow things up, to part with them. So I think that something like that happens, the Hawks add another all-star caliber player and form a big three of Trae, DeJounte, and whoever they give up John Collins for. My sixth bold prediction is one that if I told you this was a bold prediction years ago, you would have called me an idiot. It's that James Harden will be an MVP candidate this upcoming season. If I said this like 2-3 years ago, hell, even 1 year ago at this point, you would have said, yeah, well, duh, it's James Harden. However, James Harden has, of course, suffered a little bit of a fall off as of recently. He had a really rough season this past year. It looks like he's lost a step and he's on the decline. But I personally believe that he's going to bounce back in a big way. He had a really short offseason after that hamstring injury, and he's posted nonstop clips and pictures of him in the gym, working on his game, trying to rehab and get better. He bet on himself this past offseason by taking less money to let the Sixers get better around him. I think that shows that he has a lot of confidence in his game. I think having a full offseason to work and get better and get healthy, and then a full season together of him, Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and Tobias Harris, I think the Sixers are going to be phenomenal, have the potential to definitely win the Eastern Conference, and I think James Harden is going to make a case for MVP. The thing that's going to hurt him, of course, is that he plays with an MVP caliber player in Joel Embiid, who I think could very well win the award, but I think James Harden will make some noise of his own. My seventh bold prediction is that the Charlotte Hornets are going to be one of the worst teams in the NBA and in the mix for the #1 overall pick in the 2023 NBA draft. Of course, they lost Miles Bridges by no fault of their own this past offseason with his situation, so that is now their leading scorer that has gone off the roster. They did nothing to address the big man position, at least not immediately. Mark Williams is fun, and I think he could be really good in a few years, but he still is a few years away from being that NBA caliber starting center that they really need at this point. They've still got LaMelo, who's fun, Terry Rozier and Gordon Hayward, but the lack of big man play and depth off the bench, in addition to just being a young team and the Eastern Conference continuously getting better, I think they're going to get left in the dust, be like the 13th or 14th team in the Eastern Conference, which is probably good for them. They probably should tank this upcoming year to get a guy like Victor Wembanyama. Imagine him and LaMelo Ball playing with each other. So while this might be a really tough season for Hornets fans to watch in terms of the on-court product and a lot of L's and not a lot of wins, in the end, it probably is what the Hornets need to do. My eighth bold prediction is that trade rumors begin to circulate around Damian Lillard around the trade deadline, which sounds crazy because Dame just signed an extension and the Blazers made some really solid moves to make the team better. You've of course got Anthony Simons, you've got Jeremy Grant, you've got Yusuf Nurkic, you've got Josh Hart, who's really solid too, you've got Nas Little. It's a pretty solid team. However, I don't think they're good enough to make the playoffs in the West. We talked about it when we talked about the Grizzlies. There are so many great teams in that Western Conference. While I think Damian Lillard is going to have a bounce back year, I just don't believe in that team as nearly as much as I believe in some of the other teams. I could probably name 9 or 10 teams that I like over them at this moment. They'll probably be around like the 10th team in the Western Conference in my opinion, but I just don't see this roster being great, and so I wouldn't be surprised if there's some circulation of Dame trade rumors. He'll probably shut them down because he doesn't seem like a guy who at this point is going to run from the grind, as he has said multiple times, but I do think we'll hear some circulation of those rumors once again. My ninth bold prediction is that there's only one coach that gets fired during this season, and his name is Tom Thibodeau. To me, the New York Knicks made a huge move bringing in Jalen Brunson, and I believe that ownership is going to be expecting some results right away. They had that huge season a couple years ago where they were the 4 seed, losing to the Atlanta Hawks in the first round. They extended Julius Randle, made some pickups in Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier to try and bolster the team, and they were really rough this past year. Julius Randle didn't really perform, and the team as a whole didn't execute very well. There was also a lot of rumblings about, Tom Thibodeau not playing his young guys. I know there were a lot of fans, as I saw on Knicks Twitter, that weren't happy with that. And so for this upcoming season, when you bring in a guy like Jalen Brunson, you spend a max contract slot on him, and especially if they trade for Donovan Mitchell, expectations are going to be very high for the Knicks. But even if they trade for Donovan Mitchell, I still don't believe this Knicks team is a playoff team in the Eastern Conference. We talked about how tough the West is. The East is the same. There are so many great teams in the Eastern Conference: Sixers, Bucks, Celtics, of course, who just made it to the finals, the Miami Heat, the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Atlanta Hawks, the Toronto Raptors, teams that I'm forgetting off the top of my head. There are so many great teams in the Eastern Conference that are going to make things really difficult for the Knicks to push their way into that playoff picture. And so if they go ahead and make these big moves and you don't see immediate results, coupled with the whole thing where Tom Thibodeau isn't playing his young guys are playing heavy minutes, you would expect results. I don't think they're going to really get the ones that they're looking for, and so I think Tom Thibodeau is fired at some point during the season. All their teams, I think, are pretty happy with their coaching situation, so I think he's the lone name to get the axe before the end of the year. And my 10th and final bold prediction for this list is that the 2023 playoffs are some of the best of all time. This past year, we kind of got robbed because there were so many fun moments in the playoffs, and then we hit like the conference finals and everything was a blowout. We had this stretch of like 2 weeks where we saw one game that ended in a single-digit deficit. It was ridiculous, and we had so many great teams that it felt like the playoffs were going to be incredible, and they did start off really, really fun, and like I said, we got a ton of great moments, but as a whole, just way too many blowouts. This year, I think with the full offseason to rest and get better, so many teams are pushing to try and make the playoffs and make a championship run. There aren't that many teams that are outright tanking. I think we get a highly competitive NBA. We've talked about how deep both of the conferences are, and I think we get 4, 5, 6, 7 game series over the course of these NBA playoffs. I think we have an incredible year of basketball, both in the regular season and in the postseason, but I think in particular, these playoffs heading to the NBA Finals are going to be some all-timers, ones that we think about for years to come when we talk about the best playoffs of all time. There's a crazy deep league. There's no clear favorite. There's no super teams. The league is more talented than it has ever been. We are in for some of the best basketball we've ever seen this upcoming season. Those are my bold predictions for you in this video. If you want to see me make 10 more bold predictions, go ahead and comment down below and let me know. And also leave a like and subscribe. It helps me, like I said, way more than you could ever imagine. Let me know one of your bold predictions for the upcoming season in the comment section below. I appreciate y'all watching. Leave a like and subscribe like I said. I will see you all later. Real One, say it back.